Hey guys, how are ya? Welcome back to my channel. It's me, Steven. Today is March 28th, 2023. My glasses are filthy. And I just realized last night that I had an anniversary. Now, there's a lot of anniversaries this time of year for me. Most of them are kind of sad. But yesterday was a big anniversary for me. It was March 27th, 2017, that I received my wings. I graduated flight attendant training 6 years ago yesterday. Very exciting. It was, to this day, it's probably one of the biggest things I've ever done and the most satisfying. So I'm so thrilled and so grateful for the whole experience. Training was terrifying, thrilling, exciting, full of fear. It was just really a complicated experience. But 2 days later, I think it was 2 days later, it may have been three, I had my OE, my initial operating experience, where we actually had to prove we knew what we were doing. That's when we officially became real flight attendants, like Pinocchio becoming a real boy. So I was only a real flight attendant after my OE. The OE was from Fort Lauderdale to LaGuardia and back to Fort Lauderdale. And my airline, your OE has to be a minimum of 5 hours with that door closed and passengers on board. That 5 hours can include taxi, takeoff and all that stuff and landing. As long as you block 5 hours, that's your OE. One day, very easy. Also terrifying. But I had my OE. And then the next day, they flew me out to Las Vegas, where I was supposed to have 4 days off before I was released to the line. So I was supposed to have 4 days off. Now, the trick was, I've made a video about crash pads a very long time ago, one of my first videos. The trick is, I had not known that I needed a crash pad. I was not prepared. I was so focused on training, I didn't think about a crash pad, where I was going to be living. I didn't think about it. During training, I met a coworker, a future coworker, who said, "Oh, don't worry about it. I have a house with my husband. We have an extra bedroom, its own bathroom. I'll charge you $250 a month, and you'll have a place to stay." The rest of training, I was so relieved and so like, oh my God, thank God, right? Well, I arrived in Las Vegas, I think it was March 31st, probably. And that person didn't answer their phone. I was texting them, "Hey, I should have gotten the address. Where am I going?" This is a horror story. If you can't tell, this is a horror story. There was a horrible dust storm that day. No reply. I'm sitting in the airport for 2 hours. At this point, I'm crying. I've got my work luggage around me. I've got 2 suitcases of storage stuff I brought with me to Las Vegas. I had nowhere to stay, nowhere to live, no friends to crash with. I had nowhere to go. And I was lost. Because I had said no to every option for crash pads. Finally, this person replied with a text. No apologies, just saying that the room is no longer available. Her mother and her sister-in-law or something were to be moving in, and that space was taken. That was it. No apologies. No, hey, stay on my couch until you find nothing. I lost my poop. I wasn't planning on making a video about this, but here we are. I lost my poop. I was in the airport thinking, I'm screwed. I can't stay in the crew room with all of this luggage. I had nowhere to go. So I jumped on Facebook asking co-workers, our classmates, for help. I just put it out on our class page. Of course, I was really petty, and I posted all about this, including the person's name, because I wanted to make sure everyone knew what happened. I was being very petty. I deleted that post a day or two later, but yeah, I left it up for a couple of days. Long story short, one of my other classmates failed their OE twice in a row, and they had a crash pad. So since they were no longer going to be moving forward with employment with my airline, their spot in the crash pad, I just spit, was now going to be available. And so I contacted the person who had the crash pad. They took a deposit. I think it was $200 or $100. And I was able to move in. Now, I didn't have a car. It's at the very edge of the desert. It's called Desert Edge in Las Vegas. It's near the intersection of Fort Apache and Blue Diamond. If you want to look at a map, look for Fort Apache and Blue Diamond in Las Vegas. And so I came out here. A friend, Brendan, also a classmate, also no longer working for my company for lots of reasons. He let me stay on his couch that night. Then I was able to move into the crash pad the next day. So why am I telling you all about this? I got a sudden urge, a hair up my butt, to go see that first crash pad. I haven't been here since I moved out. So I had to figure out where it was. I remember Blue Diamond, Fort Apache. I drove around. I finally found it. Oh, I have an alarm telling me I have to pay my bills. I have to set alarms to pay my bills. So I drove around until I found it. So it's on a road called Roping Cowboy Ave here in Las Vegas. And I think I know the exact house. So I moved in. There were like 6 or 8 other classmates already from my class in the crash pad. So I was moving into a bunch with a bunch of people I knew, and for the most part that I loved. My classmate my roommate during training was in the bunk below me. I had to go in the top bunk. It was one of those thin metal IKEA bunk beds meant for kids, really. And like, I'm 240 pounds on whatever. So my roommate for my training was in the bottom bunk. I hated him for lots of reasons. Yeah, that was the crash pad. So there were a bunch of us, but also living there were hordes and hordes and swarms of ants. They were just ants everywhere. I don't think there were other bugs, but there were enough ants that it was kind of scary. It reminded me of a movie from the late 70s when ants killed people. The place was falling apart. The house was, I think, a relatively new build, or it was built quickly. But like the floor, the stairs, the part that the riser and the top of the stair, they literally were falling off the stairs. The place was literally falling apart. It was a nightmare house. I'm sure it's been improved since. I hope so. But another problem, it's where it is. It's Fort Apache and Blue Diamond. It's almost into the desert. There were no city buses out here this far. They didn't come out this far. So to get into the airport, I had to get an Uber. There was an understanding with a particular Uber driver that if you collected enough people, he would drive us into the airport for $5-10 a piece. But that's if a whole bunch of people were chipping in. If you were by yourself, an Uber back then was like $40 to $60 sometimes just to get to the airport or back here. If it was different times of the day, sometimes it was lower. So it was very expensive in addition to the crash pad and, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So I was there for 2 weeks and I went running. I left running. The place was a horror show. And I think I know the exact building. I'm going to show it to you. It might be one or the other because the houses all look the same. So now that I've shared with you my first horror story about a crash pad. Biggest horror story. There was 2 rooms. There was a men's room and a women's room of bunk beds. And then there was a 3rd bedroom of friends of the owner, 2 people who lived there that would go in. They lived there 24/7, and that's not a good combo with crash pad and permanent. Yeah. But these people would smoke pot in the garage. They had a huge bong and they would smoke pot, and the smell of the marijuana would come into the bedroom where I slept all the time. So I was afraid of like a contact high. Plus, having been sober for a very long time, the last thing I want to smell is pot. As much as I like the smell of pot, it's not safe for me to smell it because then I'll just want it and go do it, right? But so yeah, I ran out of this place screaming after 2 weeks. So I think I know the exact house. Yeah, I think that's it over here. Let's take a look. Ta-da! You'll notice the houses are all exactly the same with slight variations in color. And I believe it was this one right here, 9341. I think. It was either this one, this tan one right here, or the one on the left of it, 9335. It was one of the two of them. I think it was the 9335. But yeah, I ran screaming from this crash pad. I'm going to drive out of here onto Fort Apache, and then I'll show you, well, it's hard to really see, understand the distances I had to go to get anything to eat or drink or do some shopping. So you would walk, because it was so expensive to get an Uber, or and there were no buses. You'd walk out of the complex here. All these buildings, from what I understand, are new. You can see the desert is right there. You're like literally, it's a place called Desert Edge. I still don't understand how they're building new properties in Las Vegas with the water situation as it is. But I'm going to drive up to the intersection up here, which is the intersection of Fort Apache and Blue Diamond. And then I'll take a right, and I'll show you how far we are away from Las Vegas. And then for kicks, I'll drive over to my second crash pad, and then maybe I'll visit where I used to live, my old apartment complex. This will be a little tour. So this is Blue Diamond in Fort Apache, and you'll see there's just nothing out here. There's nothing out here. See that little mound right there, the little fake, like a little hill. There's a cave in there, and I walked down there just to explore. Walked into that cave. You had to climb a bit, and ran out immediately because people were living in there, like cave people. Homeless people had built an indoor complex in this large cave up there. It was terrifying. But I'd have to, if I wanted a jar of peanut butter, a soda, if I wanted a bottle of water, I would literally have to walk all the way down here. You'll notice there are no sidewalks. You had to walk in the gravel. The 7-Eleven and the dental place here are new. They were not here when I first moved in. And you can't even see from here where the McDonald's and the Walgreens are down there. But yeah, my first experience with the crash pad could not have been worse. My coworkers were wonderful for the most part. When you're in training, you become so close to these people, you think you're going to be lifelong friends. Like, there's nothing that could happen to pull you apart, because you guys went through training together, and then you live together after training. Things are different. Things are different. Like, who's not doing their dishes? Like, why isn't there room in the fridge? Who ate my food? It was a mess. But I would have to walk down here to this. There's a Walgreens, a McDonald's, and some kind of Italian restaurant or something. That Circle K is new on the right as well. It's probably a mile and a half in like 115-degree heat to get a snack. Yeah, it was awful. And I'll turn the camera on one more time so you can get an idea. Can you even imagine? Can you even guess that you're in Las Vegas? It's so far away. The city is so far away. All right, so that is my horror story about my first crash pad. I'm now going to drive to my second crash pad. I'll tell you about that place, and then I'll drive over to my where I used to live, my apartment. God, yeah, this is Cimarron right here. Oh my God, there's a hill on the right. Do you see that? I don't know why they haven't built on it, because they built on everything else. But that's like a local place that people go up to hike up the top of that. That'd be kind of fun to see what the view would look like from up here. But let's drive out to my old crash pad. Something I said earlier needs a little explanation, because, I don't say things like, I hate this person. I don't. That's just not part of my life anymore, unless it's my mother. I did hate her. But I said I hated my ex-roommate from training, and I truly did. I hated him. Oh my God, I hated him. He was incredibly selfish. He liked watching basketball games, any sports, but particularly basketball. ESPN was on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week during training. I would turn it off, he would turn it back on. So I had to wear an earplugs and an eye mask when trying to sleep. And we had an early morning class, so it was so stressful. He was an absolute pig with timing in terms of like the bathroom. He was such a jerk. He would go in and spend easily 40-45 minutes in the bathroom. I don't know what he was doing. He shaved his head, he shaved his face, but that doesn't take 45 minutes. And he would sing gospel music. Not that I have a problem with gospel music, but he would sing gospel at the top of his lungs with the music playing on like a portable player the entire time. And if it left me any time in the bathroom, I would have to take the world's fastest shower in the world. Eventually I learned to wake up like an hour before him so I could at least do that and then eat breakfast and something. But it just added an incredible amount of stress every day. I really count him as one of the reasons one of my favorite people in training was let go. It was partly her fault. She didn't study, she didn't memorize schematics before she got to training. But when he and she were intimate, we'll just say intimate, during the time she was there, they were intimate. And so she loved him and she would follow him anywhere. So when he went to yoga class and he went to this and that and this, out to dinner, she went with him when she should have been studying. And so she dedicated all of her time to him and not to studying, and so she failed. I was heartbroken over that. And he made me feel very uncomfortable. I'm not going to go into all of it, but I was made to feel very uncomfortable. And one of the only ways I was able to make that living situation tenable was to do my homework every night and leave it out. So he would copy it because he was out at yoga and eating out at dinner and all these things when he could have been doing his own work. But I would leave my homework out so he would copy it, and that just seemed to make the living situation a little easier. And so it was awful. And then to compound everything, he would sleep with other women during training, and I can't name names, but we all know that there were some people who were sleeping around during training, and that happened. And then the worst part, the kicker, the knife in the chest. Not that, because I've had that happen too. The kicker was when we were in the same crash pad. He was on the bottom bunk, I'm on the top bunk. It's one of those skinny little narrow wobbly bunk beds that the girl he was sleeping with at the time, also in the crash pad, they would sleep together in the bottom bunk when I was in the top bunk. They both knew I was there because I'm doing this like and eventually saying things like stop it, but they would sleep together in the bottom bunk and not be up in the top bunk swaying back. And so I learned to hate him. I've rarely met a more selfish, narcissistic person in my life. So there's a little explanation in case any of you were like, wow, Steven, you hated somebody? That seems kind of harsh for you. No, I hated him. All right, so let's get the rest of this tour done, and I have to go home and get ready for work. See you soon. All right, so this was my second crash pad, and it is on Hacienda, right behind this one, this house that you see on the corner on the right-hand side. On the other side of the building, you would walk up some steps, very much like you see on the right of the building there. And it was a smaller condo, much smaller condo with a small porch, as you see. Probably a mile from the airport, less from the airport, very, very close by. An Uber was still probably $15, $16 to get an Uber to the airport. Let's drive over to the pool. So I was introduced to someone named Winnie. Winnie was probably about 40, 45 years old. She had been with Delta for 25 years. She was realizing that she was getting older, wanted to make some investments in real estate. So she bought this condo and she turned it into a crash pad so it would pay for itself, which is a very wise way to do real estate. Here is a swimming pool. I spent 2 months. Oh, there must have been a fire or something here. I spent the first 2 months reserve sitting at that pool, getting brown as a bean. But this crash pad had 2 bedrooms and one small, I wouldn't say a walk-in closet, but it was a step-in closet. So I was the first person that Winnie brought into the crash pad. So I had my choice of where to go. The smaller room had 2 twin beds. The larger room had 2 bunk beds, but they were doubles. They were like double-sized mattresses, full-size mattresses, but in a big sturdy wooden bunk bed construction. I had never seen it before. It looked like 2 playpens on top of each other, really. There was also a step-in closet, and I was like, hey, if you put a twin bed in that closet, take the doors off and put like a blackout curtain in front, I'll stay there. Because I would be able to close the curtain and then get undressed without people watching, and just have a little modicum of privacy. So that's what happened. We put a bed in a closet, no jokes. And I was there in that crash pad for probably 5 months, 4 or 5 months. It was great. It was me, one white girl, I forget her name, and then the rest of the girls were young black girls, and I think those were my favorite. They were my favorite people. I can't say anything polite about the other one, but the black girls and I, one was IKEA. She was a classmate of mine. The others, I don't remember their names, but we would sit in the living room and watch YouTube videos on the TV about contouring. And contouring videos, bad ones. So we would all laugh about how poorly these girls were doing their contouring. I was a makeup artist years ago, and so it was like a common language between the group of us. And so we would laugh at these contouring videos, highlighting 15 pounds of foundation, and then blending, and then baking, and we would laugh and laugh and laugh. And then we would watch videos about hair, black hair. So plucking baby hairs, dyeing your own closure, talking about different lengths of hair and types of hair and human hair. And we talked a lot about hair. And many of the videos also very funny. There's a lot of funny videos of people dyeing their own closures. But I learned a lot about black hair living in that condo. They used to call me Grandpa, and because they were all very young, and it was a wonderful time. I loved the girls. We had the best time. But there were still a couple people who couldn't manage to do their own dishes, wash their own dishes, and just didn't respect the common area. And I was coming up on 6 months of working with my airline. I was going to get a good size raise, still not a lot of money, but enough money where I could start looking for an apartment. My old supervisor was leaving Las Vegas. This video is turning into a whole long story time. My old supervisor, Keith, was moving back to New Jersey or Florida or something. So he let me stay with him for a month in his old apartment while he was going back and forth. So I stayed there for a month, saving up some money. And then I was able to save enough money for a down payment and first month on this apartment I found. I found a studio apartment, 400 and something square feet, little apartment, adorable, and it included everything except for electricity, which is like $20 a month. It was cheap. And so I moved there. But I still kind of miss that crash pad. But my old apartment, the place I moved into, my little studio, is not that far away. So let's drive over there and check that out. So we're gonna pop onto Hacienda. We're going to take a right on South Maryland, and we will go see my old apartment. Come on, just walk across, try to kill yourself in front of a car. People. There's walk signs for a reason. I'm an old lady. Alright, I will take a right on South Maryland, and we will be there in just a shake. Hey guys, alright, so I came by my old studio where I used to live. I'm in the guest parking area. Over here is where I used to feed cats. Sometimes I'd film my late night walks over here to take care of the cats. I don't see any evidence of cat food or cat water bowls or anything, but it doesn't mean bad news completely. Over here, this empty parking spot's where my old neighbor used to live, park her car, and she would leave food and water under her car. I don't see anything here. Oh, there's a couple handfuls of food right there. And I think I see a cat. Yeah, I do. I do see a cat. Oh, this is you really can't see her from here. She looks just like Eleanor, but with a little bit more brown honey kind of tones to some of her spots. She looks just like Eleanor. It would be kind of strange if that was Eleanor's sister. That would be kind of wild. That cat looked fairly healthy for a stray cat, but my parking spot used to be down where that little SUV is. I don't see any other cats. That's a little heartbreaking too. There were probably a dozen. I only saw one. And my apartment used to be over here. So this is one of the buildings right here, and you can see the apartments were exactly half of that. So that amount of area, but to that light, is the size of the interior of the apartment. That's the length, and the width, very narrow. This is where I used to live. You can see like where that door is there, one window, and about 5 feet of space after that. That was the size of the apartment. And that was great when it was just me and maybe one cat, but I grew to hate this place so much. Oh my God. But I used to feed Buddy and Eleanor and other cats under that stairwell. And a very strong, distinct memory I have is of walking down that little walkway there. I was on the way to get my keys to my condo. I have a very distinct memory of walking down there to get my keys. I was here for about 3.5 years. The first year, I was actually quite happy. I mean, I was on reserve for a few months, and then I got a line, but I just still wasn't making a lot of money. And the rent here was $525 a month, including everything. My first crash pad was $200 a month. My second crash pad was $270 a month. So $525 didn't seem like such an irrational jump into having my own apartment. And I was very happy here for a little bit. Plenty of space for one person. I was one bus to work that dropped me right off at the airport. And there's a grocery store within a walking distance, a mall across the street. So what's not to love, right? Well, the entire apartment is about the size of my bedroom right now. So 3 cats in that space, not good. Not good for any of us. And then the COVID hit, and we all had to be in lockdown. I felt like I was in a prison cell. And even when COVID started, opening up, when things started opening up, I still felt so just suffocated when I got home. I hated it. I just hated coming home here. And yeah, but now I'm in my condo. It's so exciting. Speaking of, a little blurry. Speaking of condo, I'm going to, hold on. Speaking of condo, I'm going to go to the grocery store right across where I used to go to all the time. Buy a couple bits and pieces of snacks, groceries, whatever I need for this trip. I'm not taking a lot of food because I have a Cancun turn And when you go through customs, and I have to come out through customs in Houston, you have to declare everything, and there's so many things you can't take: fruits, nuts, vegetables, all sorts of stuff. So I'm not going to take a lot of food with me that I can't eat before that trip, or those legs. So I'm gonna buy some food and then head back to my condo, take a nap in my bed in my huge expansive bedroom with my beautiful kitty cats, and ta-da, that's where I used to live here in Las Vegas, and a couple stories about my my crash pad experience. I will see you guys again very soon. You have a great day. Fly safe.